What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A U.S. congressional delegation is in Taiwan. The visit comes just days after China wrapped up huge military drills around the country in response to a speech made by President Lai Ching-te. Tiffany Wong is following the story for us from Taipei. Tiffany, what is this visit about?
Now, this is the latest bipartisan delegation to visit Taiwan, and they'll be here for 4 days to discuss the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, as well as regional security and trade. This comes as the first delegation after President Lai Ching-te's inauguration earlier this month, and it also follows 2 days of heavy military drills by China around the island, which China says was held as punishment for so-called separatist forces following that inauguration. Now, these American delegates say that they have a message.
President Lai and I, as always, had a very sobering and yet very direct conversation about the threat that this island faces from its neighbors, and it's a real one. And without deterrence, Chairman Xi has bold and aggressive ambitions, and we just need to do everything we can to make it possible for him to see that the risk outweighs the reward.
The delegation is being led by the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, that's Michael McCaul, and he was previously sanctioned by China for his last visit to Taiwan in 2023. The delegation also includes some other representatives who have been outspoken about their support for Taiwan, including Representative Young Kim, who recently lobbied for Taiwan's inclusion at the World Health Assembly.
Is this visit a message to China? Do we expect a response from Beijing?
Well, we know that that China opposes exchanges between American and Taiwanese officials, as they have no official diplomatic relationship. And so China frequently responds with increased military activity around these times. The biggest was following a visit by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan in 2022. And we also saw a huge response after former President Tsai Ing-wen visited another former House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, in California in 2023. Now, on Friday, China's foreign ministry warned the U.S. to adhere to the One China principle and to, quote, refrain from, quote, using Taiwan to control China. But just this morning, Taiwan's defense ministry reported that there were 20 Chinese aircraft operating in the space around Taiwan, even though China's military drills ended on Friday. So you can see that there's still a huge amount of pressure on the island. Now, China has said that it will respond if the U.S. continues to engage with Taiwan, but whether that's with more increased military activity or sanctions against these individual lawmakers is still yet to be seen.
That was Tiffany Wong speaking live from Taipei. The legislature remains deadlocked over controversial reforms that have sparked chaos on the chamber floor and protests in the streets. An opposition coalition has the votes to get the bills passed, but as John Van Trieste reports, that may not be the end of the story.
There are brief lulls like this one in the days-long battle that's taken over Taiwan's legislative chamber. But protest banners all along the walls and on the floor show the front lines haven't shifted at all. 5 deeply divisive reforms that would vastly expand legislative power have sparked violent clashes among lawmakers. Protest organizers say the reforms have brought up to 100,000 opponents into the streets. Among the controversial points is text that would let lawmakers compel testimony from people of interest in investigations and fine or jail those who give false testimony. A final reading of the bills could come as soon as Tuesday, promising more chaos. President Lai Ching-te and his Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, are staunchly opposed to the bills. Lai took to Facebook, calling on lawmakers to follow proper procedures. But in the legislature, the DPP is outnumbered by 2 rivals who've joined forces to get the bills passed. One of these, the Taiwan People's Party, had this to say about the DPP's opposition.
总会是执政党自己在动员抗争行动。我觉得这有一种时空错乱的感觉，太奇怪了。这个我不晓得在干什么。
The other rival party, the Kuomintang, says the DPP is giving partisan interests priority over the greater good.
这篇脸书文从头到尾都是从民进党的利益出发，没有从国家的利益，没有从总统的高度。
Others in the party see the DPP's opposition to the bills as a hypocritical about-face. Lawmaker Wang Xiaoling wrote on Facebook that this kind of expansion of legislative power is something the DPP once supported.
这个法案基本上已经延宕了非常多年。如果这一次民进党党团认为这个法案有问题，不满意这个法案的话，他可以透过现行的制度，也可以申请释宪。
But the DPP says its opposition to the bills is well-founded, and in previous constitutional court rulings, no less.
585讲得很清楚，立法院有调阅权的往前伸的调查权。国民党现在把五权变一权，这样的写法当然是违宪的。
The DPP says the legislature has no right to compel private businesses to testify or to hand out criminal sentences. And it says if the bills do pass, it will indeed bring them before the Constitutional Court for a ruling. The political turbulence these bills have brought may not be anywhere near an end. Kama Xu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
An opposition party legislator says she will sue a ruling party colleague after punches were thrown during a legislative session on Friday. Opposition Taiwan People's Party legislator Mak No-chin was punched in the face, while the ruling DPP legislator Lin Shu-fen was hit on her arm. TPP chair Ko Wen-je has voiced his support for Mak, who is a Vietnamese immigrant. The clash happened during the third round of voting on opposition-backed legislative reforms that have sparked nationwide protests. Lin says she was acting in self-defense. Mak says the incident has triggered her past trauma.
我是因为家暴的那种恐慌，又现在就是因为他打我的那一拳后，就会让我就是所有以前的那种伤痛都想到，都会觉得恐怖的。
Pro-Palestinian activists say they were harassed and treated violently by embassy staff while protesting on the sidelines of a pro-Israel concert in Taipei.
I was grabbed by someone from behind and he just threw me on the floor very violently, directly, and cut my leg.
The demonstrators, who were holding Palestinian flags, say they were physically and verbally harassed at the music festival that was organized by the Friends of Israel Alliance Taiwan. Video footage has emerged of some of the protesters being shoved at the event. The Israeli Economic and Cultural Office in Taipei, whose representative attended the concert, said one of the protesters made a suspicious dash towards the stage. 2 firefighters have died in the northern city of Hsinchu while trying to rescue people trapped in a blazing apartment block. Fire crews had managed to bring the fire under control, but 2 of them went back into the building after hearing that some people were still trapped inside. They were found in a stairwell, apparently overcome by smoke after their tanks ran out of oxygen. The exact cause of the fire is still being investigated. NGO National Association for Firefighters' Rights is calling on the cabinet to set up its own investigative committee. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda has been re-elected following a campaign where his support for NATO and opposition to Russia have been the focus. Nausėda will serve a second 5-year term beginning in July. With nearly 90% of polling stations reporting, Nausėda won around 3/4 of the votes. He says he will continue to strengthen the country's security and tighten relations with its NATO and EU allies. During his campaign, Nausėda also called for an improvement in relations with China, which have soured since Taiwan opened a representative office in the country. Frontline workers from Ukraine are sharing lessons learned from defending their country with people in Taiwan. They say the public's ability to respond to a crisis could be key. Jaime Okan reports.
Part of Ukraine's success in defending against the Russian invasion stems from the role that civilians are playing. Tens of thousands of its citizens have volunteered to support the military in both combat and medical roles. And that's caught the attention of people here in Taiwan, which faces its own threat of invasion from China. At a summit in Taipei, Ukrainian NGO workers shared insights from the front lines.
In high school, we had lessons. Girls were learning how to give a first aid, and guys were learning how to be the territory defense, how to use guns and setting. I think it was very good way of government to teach us just a little bit, but it really was very useful because we didn't panic. Not all, but some people who remember these lessons, they don't panic. They know that they need to make it back, get food, get medicine, take a lot of water, water for drinking, water for wash hands and side drinks.
Taiwanese civil defense groups like Kuma Academy have already started teaching people here about emergency first aid. They're focusing on quickly treating wounded people during a conflict. But these Ukrainians also say that with the world growing more unstable, learning things like using a gun is also necessary.
There is need to know how to provide first aid and how to defend yourself in case, because also we live in very uncertain times, so we don't know, maybe Third World War will start, yes? So no one knows what will happen. We see this rising authoritarian regimes.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, thousands of civilians took up arms to protect their communities. Working with retired or reservist military personnel, Ukraine created dozens of territorial defense forces to support the military. And there are calls for Taiwan to do the same. These Ukrainians say a territorial defense force will build up resistance, making Taiwan harder to attack. But some analysts fear it could be too little, too late.
Things like reserve reform, creating a territorial defense force or a home guard, making training more rigorous, reorganizing the ground forces. Those things take a lot of time, and time is something that Taiwan may not have in spades.
The Ukrainian volunteers say the core lesson is to be prepared for a conflict and aware that what could come at any time. The Ukrainians here say that words are meant to inspire action and not fear, and that many people in Taiwan are willing to defend their country.
And actually, it's great to see that 50% of your population is ready to defend your country. But now the spirit should be, how to say, with the government partnership develop in institutions and civilians from tactical medicine. So no panic, just when you know how to use tourniquets and everything. This is even morale is important when you know what are your steps. Instead of fear, you have to be prepared.
As these workers head back to the front lines, people here are hoping to apply their lessons to Taiwan with the aim of being prepared for the worst. Andy Shrey and Jaime Ocon in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Chinese Premier Li Qiang and South Korea President Yoon Suk-yeol have agreed to resume talks on a free trade agreement and launch a diplomatic and security dialogue. The announcement comes ahead of trilateral talks between South Korea, China and Japan taking place in Seoul today.
한중 외교 안보 대화를 신설해서 6월 중순에 그 첫 회의를 개최하기로 하였습니다. 외교부와 국방부 당국 간의 2+2 대화 협의체라고 볼 수 있는데요. 외교부에서는 차관이 그리고 국방부에서는 국장급 고위 관료가 참석을 하게 됩니다.
Chinese Premier Li Qiang said the two countries should work together to tackle common international and economic challenges. Li also met with Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio, the pair vowing to deepen regional cooperation between China and Japan.
こうした努力の積み重ねにより日中関係を安定させていくことは日中両国のみならず地域や国際社会にとって有益なものである確信をしております。リード総理のご協力を心からお願い申します。
Search efforts are continuing in Papua New Guinea after a landslide that is feared to have buried over 2,000 people. The UN Migration Agency estimates more than 150 homes were leveled under 6 to 8 meters of rubble in Enga province. Over 1,200 people from the area have been evacuated, as the disaster zone remains dangerous and unstable. Thanks for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, enjoy these images from a lantern festival being held in Jiufen on Taiwan's northern coast. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.